Twilight never lifts over Finnmark as wind-driven snow scrapes the rock and turns the world to a white tunnel. A gloved hand settles on rifle metal rimed with frost. The touch, quick and sure. Breath held just enough to keep it from blooming into a steam plume. Radios hiss with ice and flat voices as rotary wing assets are weathered out by icing and gusting crosswinds. Close air support is grounded for low ceilings, poor visibility, and deconfliction limits that shut the door on a rescue. In a narrow ravine, a Royal Marines Commando troop moves in short bounds. The floor shaped like a kill zone, and the shelves above cut into angles that punish every mistake. Emily M. Carter is with the training cadre, a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer and former Naval Special Warfare sniper instructor, now working as a civilian cold weather guide. She is present, steady, and underestimated, treated like a safety escort while she watches the angles and the wind. No rotor, no panic, as camera stays with boots and magazine checks. Midwinter on the Finnmark Plateau feels like a held breath that never releases. A dim blue hour stretched thin across rock and snow. A Royal Marines Commando troop moves on skis and boots, training under NATO guidelines that have slid into a real-world crisis. The troop commander is a lieutenant who sets intent and direction, while a Royal Marines sergeant named Ryan Hale manages the line under pressure. Emily M. Carter travels with the cadre, a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer and former Naval Special Warfare sniper instructor, now serving as a civilian cold weather guide. M is treated like a safety escort, yet she carries Arctic marksmanship habits earned the hard way. She reads glare off, crusted snow, and makes range calls without drama. She builds hides in ground that barely covers a shadow and keeps breath shallow enough to avoid a steam plume that would betray position. She does not seize, command, or the radio, and defers to the lieutenant as a matter of discipline and respect. The environment strips options down to essentials. Midwinter twilight never becomes day, and wind-driven snow cuts visibility to a few dozen meters, while radios crackle with ice. Rotary wing assets are weathered out by moderate to severe icing and gusting crosswinds that exceed limits near the surface. Close air support is grounded for ceilings and visibility below minima and due to airspace deconfliction, which means no immediate rescue is coming. The terrain frames the fight before a shot is fired. A narrow ravine funnels movement and shapes a potential kill zone, with elevated shelves that enable enfilade fire against anyone exposed on the floor. Likely anchors sit in the mind like a checklist, a general-purpose machine gun team locking down the center, a spotter coordinating corrections, a flanking element poised to collapse any retreat. The rhythm to answer it will be bounding overwatch, casualty drag under cover, smoke used with the wind, and short timing calls that remove emotion from decisions. Tone matters as much as tactics here. Language stays neutral and correct, with magazine instead of clip and no model names unless necessary. M offers timing and information from an overwatch position that respects the chain of command and supports the lieutenant. The story keeps focus on mood, movement, and professionalism, with no gore, no melodrama, and no grand speeches. Only trained people doing difficult work in hard weather. The ravine tightens like a funnel in Finnmark, with rock shelves stepping up on both sides and a thin skin of ice over stone. The floor sits lower than the flanks and turns into dead space where sound pools and sightlines vanish until a figure moves. Wind-driven snow cuts the world to a few dozen meters and makes the sky and ground blur into a single white plane. Radios crackle with ice, while every step risks exposure on open snow that hides little and punishes hesitation. The terrain channels movement into predictable lines that a patient enemy can read from the shelves. Angles stack along the high ground and create lanes for enfilade fire against anyone who breaks cover on the floor. Before a single round flies, the ground itself has built a kill zone that rewards the first team to fix and finish. The camera stays low to the crust and lets the audience feel how few choices remain when the walls press in. The trap shows its anchors with cold clarity. A general-purpose machine gun team locks the ravine floor and denies motion. Its arcs chewing up the safe paths. A spotter corrects and controls fire from a vantage that sees the freeze and the sprint. A flanking element maneuvers to collapse any retreat, while a medic cannot reach a casualty without drawing fire. Raising the pressure and testing discipline with each breath and each pause. The unit frame stays precise and respectful. A Royal Marines Commando troop works under a troop commander who is a lieutenant, while a Royal Marines sergeant named Ryan Hale holds the line and keeps voices steady. Emily M. Carter is a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer and former Naval Special Warfare sniper instructor, who now serves as a civilian cold weather guide attached to the training cadre. She does not take command or seize the net, but reads the ground, finds seams in the rock, checks her magazine during a lull, and prepares to provide overwatch in a way that honors the chain of command. Sergeant Ryan Hale cuts the noise with a firm warning, and Emily M. Carter yields without a word. She keeps the net clear and moves upwind, low to the snow, letting the gusts cover small sounds. A narrow seam in the rock breaks her outline and gives a shadow to vanish into. She settles into a stable prone, rifle supported, body anchored, and manages each breath so it will not bloom into a visible steam plume in the cold. Her overwatch is informal and respectful of authority. The lieutenant owns the plan and the line, while M offers timing and information in short, clean phrases when a lull allows it. She reads the terrain and counts beats in the wind, the way a drummer counts time, saving words for when they matter. During a pause, she checks her magazine, confirms chamber status, and returns to scanning the shelves without any attention on gear. Angles, concealment, and patience guide every choice. She picks a firing position that gives a cut at the machine gun team and a slice toward the likely spotter while masking her heat and silhouette. In her head, the sequence is simple and repeatable. Identify, confirm, act once, then go still again. She watches how gusts lift, spin drift, watches how echoes fall into the ravine, and waits for action that opens a window for bounding. The tone stays cool, humble, and precise, because that is what winter work demands. M does not take command, grandstand, or hunt glory. She keeps the net clear and lets posture carry calm. A small nod here, a still muzzle there. The quiet habits that steady other people. Bit by bit, she disappears into the snow and becomes the calm point that draws panic down, turning chaos into control with timing rather than volume. She starts by naming the problem inside her head in plain steps. The ravine floor is locked by a general-purpose machine gun team that owns the lanes. A spotter rides the rhythm and shapes correction. A flanking element moves along the shelf to close the door on any retreat that slips free. The decision tree is simple and cold. Neutralize the machine gun to cut suppression and open breathing room. Blind the spotter so control unravels and angles widen. Disrupt the flanker so the withdrawal window stays open long enough for people to move without running. Emily M. Carter lies in stable prone, with the rifle supported and her body anchored into the crust. She uses a 7.62 by 51 mm NATO-designated marksman rifle with an optic and a suppressor issued for the exercise. She watches spin, drift, and counts the beat between gusts. Then holds for the cut and presses on a natural respiratory pause. The shot is single and deliberate, aimed to break the team that locks the floor rather than to chase noise. She listens for the change that follows a good decision. The lane softens, voices shorten. She checks her magazine during a lull and confirms chamber status without drama, then returns to glassing the shelves. The spotter reveals himself in the rhythm of correction, and she makes the same calm sequence again. Identify, confirm, act once, go still. The troop feels the opening and adapts without being told. To move, while the rest cover in a clean cycle of bounding overwatch. They freeze on the mark. Then swap roles and repeat. Casualty drag happens under cover, along rock contour, instead of across open snow. Smoke blooms with the wind to screen a short crossing without masking friendly sights. Radio language stays short and professional so the net remains usable. Moving. Set. Contact right. Smoke out. Her voice adds timing and information, but never orders. The lieutenant remains in command, and the Royal Marines sergeant manages the line. She threads cues into the quiet between bursts, so motion lands inside the safest window. She refuses to chase random shooters because that feeds chaos. She removes one anchor at a time and lets angles fall apart on their own. The machine gun team goes quiet. The spotter stops shaping fire. The flanking element finds its door half closed by timing and distance. Panic thins out as restraint adds structure. The tone stays cool and grounded because that is how people survive winter fights. No gear worship. No model shopping. Magazine instead of clip. Muzzle discipline always. The audience feels how small. Decisive actions replace fear with rhythm. A professional solves the ambush by solving for the anchors. And the unit gets its heartbeat back. Her voice arrives like a metronome that never crowds the net. Gun, high left. Rock shelf. Hold. Wait. Now. 2. Move. 4. Cover. Freeze on my mark. Each cue is clean and brief, so the lieutenant keeps authority and decisions. The troop stops reacting in fragments and starts to match a steady beat. Small pauses line up with gusts. The line breathes in the same rhythm and the white noise of panic fades. Bounding overwatch becomes a clear cycle that repeats without drama. 2 Marines move, while the rest provide controlled fire that masks motion without burning ammunition. They drop to prone and call set in calm voices. The covering element rises and moves while smoke blooms downwind to screen a short crossing without blinding friendly sights. 3 to 5 rounds are enough. No one dumps a magazine. The pattern resets and holds. Emily M. Carter listens harder than she speaks. She counts the quiet between bursts and threads her calls into those safe windows. Moving. Set. Contact left. Smoke out. She keeps phrases short, so crosstalk never builds. A Marine performs a tactical reload during a lull and retains the partially spent magazine. A medic advances only under cover. Applies what is needed. Then begins a casualty drag along rock contour instead of exposing the team on open snow. M checks her own magazine and confirms chamber status during a brief reset. Then returns to glassing the shelves. She does not chase random targets because noise creates more noise. She protects the next bound. Angles tighten when needed and ease when a window opens. Her timing cancels the urge to sprint and replaces it with measured motion. The lieutenant sets intent while the Royal Marines sergeant keeps the line honest. Radio brevity stays realistic and professional. No hero speeches. No crosstalk. Relief mixes with focus as kinematics replace fear. The unit realizes it can act inside the ambush instead of waiting for impact. Tempo control gives back initiative, one careful step at a time. Rotary wing assets are weathered out before they even lift. Moderate to severe icing builds fast on blades and airframe. And ice accretion turns hover and low-level flight into unacceptable risk, even with anti-ice systems. Gusting crosswinds exceed limits and erode tail rotor authority near the surface. So, control margins collapse when the wind shifts in the ravine. Close air support is grounded because ceilings and visibility are below minima and airspace deconfliction cannot be guaranteed in broken terrain. Precision approach radar support is not available. And holding in icing would stack risk with no payoff. That reality shapes every choice on the ground. The troop accepts that there will be no medevac bird and no fast jet waiting overhead. The lieutenant keeps the plan centered on controlled movement and casualty care under cover. Not on wishful thinking. Emily M. Carter aligns each timing call to what the weather allows. treating discipline as the only reliable support. The mood stays calm and pragmatic because clear limits make for clear decisions. Aviation language stays exact, so expectations stay real. Terms like ceilings, visibility, minima, deconfliction, icing, and weathered out are not drama. They are planning factors that trained people use in winter operations. The absence of air support is not failure and not a surprise. It is a known constraint that rewards self-reliance and teamwork. The audience should feel sober realism and a lift of confidence as measured actions replace the fantasy of rescue from above. The flanking element reaches the choke point, ready to close a door that is no longer there. Empty snow drifts where bodies should be. And the floor of the ravine shows only softened tracks that vanish into blowing white. Emily M. Carter denies angles with short bursts of controlled fire from a position that masks friendly movement. Each burst is measured to pin eyes rather than announce location. And it creates a clean window for the next bound. The rhythm is simple and repeats until it feels like a heartbeat. 2. Move while the rest cover. Then they freeze. Check their positions. And prep the next step. Smoke blooms downwind to screen a brief crossing without blinding the friendly side or masking fields of fire. The team reads the gusts and lets the wind carry the veil where it helps rather than hurts. Practical habits keep the escape real and safe under pressure. A Marine performs a tactical reload during a lull and retains the partially spent magazine, then nods into the next role without fanfare. A medic advances only under cover, applies a tourniquet if required, and begins a casualty drag along the rock contour instead of crossing open snow. M checks her own magazine and chamber status, scans the shelves for the spotter, and protects the next bound rather than chasing random targets. Command remains correct and calm, so the net stays usable. The lieutenant sets intent and approves movement, while M offers timing and information that respect authority. Radio calls stay tight and spare. Moving. Set. Smoke out. Contact, left. The pauses do most of the work, as M listens for the wind and the quiet between bursts. Then threads her cues through those gaps, so motion lands in the safest window. The flanker loses the trap because the trap is already gone. Footprints fade into drift. Smoke thins over ground that is no longer occupied. And once useful angles now look into nothing. The machine gun team is silent, and the spotter has lost control. So the flanking push cannot fix what has unraveled. The troop clears the last shelf and regains depth, while M stays patient, holds position, and refuses to overextend. Terms stay precise and neutral, so the story stays honest. Magazine instead of clip. Generic weapon references unless a model name is required. The mood shifts from breath held tight to steady relief, as angles, tempo, and discipline beat a plan that once felt inevitable. Movement and timing replace heroics. And science quietly wins the day. Snow hushes the world at the rally point as the Royal Marines Commando troop settles behind a low fold of rock. The lieutenant confirms accountability and runs a fast ACE report for ammunition, casualties, and equipment while the perimeter takes shape. Sergeant Ryan Hale manages the line, sets sectors, and keeps voices low so the net stays clear. Emily M. Carter stays in the background, clears her rifle, checks her magazine during a lull, and scans the shelves for any sign of a trailing threat. The medic moves under cover and stabilizes the casualty with careful hands that ignore the cold. Tourniquets are secured if needed, and hypothermia checks follow as the wind bites through layers. Radios crackle back to clean as settings are reset and batteries warmed. The team breathes for what feels like the first time in hours, letting the cold air steady nerves and slow the rush that contact leaves behind. Recognition arrives as quiet professionalism, not ceremony. The lieutenant steps in close, posture easy, and offers a short acknowledgement that M was more than a safety escort and that her overwatch mattered when the line was thin. M answers with humility and credits the unit for holding discipline under pressure. A nod. A steady breath. And the way shoulders settle become the language of thanks among people who measure words carefully. Procedure follows as naturally as breath in winter operations. Weapons are safe and checked. Magazines topped during a pause. And smoke canisters stowed to avoid accidental signatures. The medic finishes packaging for movement and sketches a route that avoids open snow and favors rock contour. Sergeant Hale confirms sectors again before the unit steps off, using tight radio brevity that sounds clipped and calm. M remains a civilian guide attached to the cadre, offering timing and information from Overwatch while respecting the chain of command. The tone stays calm and grounded because that is how people come home in hard weather. Military language is accurate and neutral, with magazine instead of clip and no model names to distract from the work. There are no speeches, no music swells, and no hero poses. Competence, restraint, and shared trust carry the weight, leaving a quiet sense that discipline is the strongest support when nothing else can reach you. The first lesson is to identify anchors, not noise. In the ravine, the terrain and the enemy created enfilade lanes. But the general-purpose machine gun team was the piece that locked the floor. Neutralizing that team reduced suppression and opened breathing room. The difference between confusion and control began with seeing the structure of the trap instead of chasing random shooters. The second lesson is to impose tempo with bounding overwatch. 2. Move, while the rest cover. Then freeze on the mark so roles can swap without panic. This rhythm let the troop pull a casualty under cover along rock contour while keeping rounds disciplined and purposeful. Windows for movement appeared because timing, not volume, set the pace. The third lesson is to use smoke with the wind to screen short crossings without blinding the friendly side. M watched gusts and let smoke bloom downwind, so sightlines for the team stayed clear. The fourth lesson is to avoid a mag dump and favor precise, controlled fire that opens space for the next bound. Magazine checks happen during lulls. And 3 to 5 well-placed rounds, masked motion, better than a spray that gave away position. The fifth lesson is a mindset that keeps decisions honest. No rotor. No panic means accepting that ceilings and visibility can drop below minima, and that deconfliction can ground close air support. Weathered out air is a planning factor in winter operations. Not a surprise. The lieutenant held command, while Emily M. Carter offered timing and information from an overwatch position that respected the chain of command, proving that discipline, not volume, restores initiative. These habits fit joint training because they scale under pressure and do not depend on a specific model or gadget. They rely on angles, timing, and restraint that any trained unit can apply when options are limited. The result is calm confidence rather than drama. Small, repeated actions bring people home when conditions are harsh and support is unavailable. Wind over the ridge is the first motif, and it speaks for chaos that will not obey anyone. It moves in gusts that erase tracks, then falls away and leaves pockets of silence a trained ear can use. Emily M. Carter listens for those gaps and places, timing into those seconds so motion lands when sound is masked. The wind becomes a partner, not a threat, because discipline turns noise into cover. Frost on rifle metal is the second motif, and it stands for patience under pressure. The cold plates, the action, and optic with a skin that punishes rushed handling. So hands stay steady and breath stays shallow to avoid a steam plume. M slows the press on the trigger and confirms the hold before a single, deliberate shot opens a window. In that pause, the team feels control return, because one clean act matters more than noise. Measured bounding steps form the third motif and show professionalism, replacing panic. 2 move while the rest cover. Then freeze, so roles can swap cleanly, and casualty drag can happen under cover along the rock contour. The rhythm respects the lieutenant and lets the Royal Marines sergeant manage the line, while Emily M. Carter supports from an overwatch position. Small. Repeated decisions build safety, the way stepping stones build a path across fast water. Each motif ties back to the ravine and then reaches into daily life without a lecture. Wind is the cue for a timing call. Frost is the reminder to slow down and confirm. And bounding is the pattern that moves a task in small, safe steps. The same habits fit any hard moment where rescue is not coming. Keep terms accurate. Say magazine instead of clip. And let choices turn a hard place into a path home. Viewers who care about accuracy deserve a clear picture of who is on the ground and who makes decisions. The unit depicted is a Royal Marines Commando troop from the Royal Navy, not the British Army. The troop commander is a lieutenant who holds authority, while a Royal Marine sergeant named Ryan Hale manages the line and keeps movement honest. Emily M. Carter is a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer and former Naval Special Warfare sniper instructor, who now serves as a civilian cold weather guide attached to the training cadre, offering timing and information from an overwatch position while respecting the chain of command. Terms and equipment stay precise without turning into model shopping. Use magazine instead of clip for all small arms discussions. The enemy base of fire is a 7.62mm general-purpose machine gun that locks the ravine floor and denies movement. M's rifle is a 7.62 by 51mm NATO-designated marksman rifle with an optic and a suppressor issued for the exercise, and her behavior reflects correct safety practices. Consistent muzzle awareness, and a tactical reload during a lull with retention of a partially spent magazine. Ground tactics work because they are simple and repeatable under stress. Bounding overwatch means 2 move, while the rest cover. Then freeze on the mark, so roles can swap cleanly and the pattern repeats. Smoke is used with the wind to screen a short crossing without blinding the friendly side. And the medic advances only under cover before beginning a casualty drag along rock contour. These habits deny enemy angles. Open a withdrawal window. And keep the troop from exposing itself on open snow, where enfilade fire would punish hesitation. Aviation constraints match winter operations rather than movie scenes. Rotary wing assets are weathered out by moderate to severe icing and gusting crosswinds beyond limits. And tail rotor authority near the surface can be eroded. Close air support is grounded because ceilings and visibility are below minima, and airspace deconfliction is not assured in broken terrain. Precision approach radar is not available, and holding in icing would add unacceptable risk to aircrew and aircraft. Accuracy in these details matters because it shows how discipline, teamwork, and realistic planning bring people home without speeches, without theatrics, and with a calm respect for what the weather and the ground will allow. The wind carries the last thin echoes of contact across the ridge, while the medic secures care under cover. The lieutenant checks the perimeter with calm posture that steadies the line. And the Royal Marines sergeant anchors the flow with quiet hand signals. Emily M. Carter clears her rifle, tops a magazine during a lull, and stays alert on the edge of the group. Cold air fills the spaces between people as breathing settles into something steady and human. Field habits turn into everyday habits when you strip away noise. Identify anchors becomes finding the few tasks that actually matter when stress spikes at home or at work. Impose tempo becomes slowing a meeting or a hard conversation so people can move in small, safe bounds instead of rushing into mistakes. Use smoke with the wind becomes choosing cover and timing and planning so you do not blind your own side or hide the very path you need. You have likely felt that hinge point when noise tried to run the day and you chose competence instead. Maybe someone underestimated you and you let results speak while you kept the net clear. No rotor. No panic becomes a mindset for self-reliance. When outside help is not coming, the line between fear and focus turns out to be a few practice choices made on purpose. Keep the military language accurate and plain, because clarity builds trust. Magazine instead of clip. Clean radio brevity and respect for the chain of command are small habits that scale. The image that remains is simple. Footprints fade into clean snow, while discipline, patience, and small repeated actions add up to a path home. The lesson is not a speech. It is a rhythm you can feel. A way to move through cold hours until warmth returns. Calm beats chaos when discipline sets the tempo. Let the wind and the quiet carry the image of footprints fading into clean snow as the team steps off the ridge. What stays is respect for a Royal Marines Commando troop under a lieutenant with a Royal Marines sergeant managing the line. Emily M. Carter remains a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer and former Naval Special Warfare sniper instructor who now serves as a civilian cold weather guide, offering timing and information while honoring the chain of command. If this kind of grounded realism speaks to you, add a simple note with the word "widowed" to ask for another cold weather analysis. Subscribe to the Professional Save series, where skill and discipline bring people home when the weather and the ground refuse to cooperate. Share this story if the lessons helped you see how calm habits work under pressure. Thank you for spending time here, and for valuing quiet professionalism over noise. We keep the voice personal and sincere because these are real habits that real people use when options are limited. Short sentences, clean pauses, and plain language make space for the work itself. No hero poses, no gear talk, and no speeches. Only the steady rhythm of trained people doing hard tasks well. More stories of calm competence are coming for the days when conditions turn rough, and the only way through is a measured step, a clear call, and the kind of teamwork that leaves a clean path behind in the snow. Set a calm voiceover cadence that feels like a steady heartbeat. Slow the delivery during tense beats so listeners can track movement and cause and effect. Simplify jargon and pronounce terms like bounding overwatch and enfilade clearly, with a tiny pause before and after each term. Weave radio brevity into narration so it sounds natural and never like a script read. Let realism lead the sound design. Use real wind recorded in cold air, light radio static, and restrained percussion to raise tension instead of heavy music. Allow natural pauses to carry weight after timing calls and during lulls before movement. Keep callouts such as moving and set clipped, calm, and free of panic so the net feels professional. Keep the picture strategy clean and readable without canvas. Use simple overlays and clear map graphics to mark the kill zone layout with the general purpose machine gun position, the spotter, the flanking element, and the bounding paths. Add a small wind arrow that explains smoke, drift, and a discrete icon tracing the casualty drag route along rock contour. Cut to tactile close-ups, like a gloved hand on frosted metal, a shallow breath, and a sight picture held steady against the shake of wind. Build transitions around actions instead of wipes. Match cut on a breath taken before a shot, on a boot compressing crusted snow, or on smoke beginning to billow downwind. Keep color natural and avoid crush or bloom that would make winter glare unreadable. Let the environment carry mood rather than filters. Run a military accuracy gate before lock. Confirm the unit is a Royal Marines Commando troop from the Royal Navy, with a lieutenant as troop commander and a Royal Marine sergeant named Ryan Hale managing the line. Confirm. Emily M. Carter is a retired United States Navy Chief Petty Officer and former Naval Special Warfare sniper instructor, now serving as a civilian cold weather guide. Verify correct usage of magazine instead of clip and general-purpose machine gun for the enemy weapon. And ensure radio language remains brief, while M offers timing and information that respect the chain of command. Detail safe weapon handling in every shot. Maintain muzzle awareness. Show fingers off triggers until the decision to fire. And depict tactical reloads only during a lull with retention of a partially spent magazine. Keep optics and accessories unbranded and functional, so attention stays on behavior. Avoid gear worship and avoid model shopping. Define editorial pacing so viewers never feel lost. Cold open for 10 seconds. Setup for up to 60 seconds. Trap and equation for about 2 minutes. Bound and flanker loss for about 1 minute. Rally and recognition for 30 seconds. Lessons and outro for under 1 minute. Keep the flow smooth, with match cuts on breath or wind, and hold frames a beat longer when the story needs quiet. Close with ethics that match the subject. Avoid gore. Do not glorify violence. And maintain respect for all forces who train in winter operations. Let recognition moments remain quiet and professional. The story should celebrate disciplined teamwork, accurate language, and decisions made under pressure, not spectacle. First question. No medevac or close air support arrived because aviation was weathered out. Moderate to severe icing built on blades and airframes, while gusting crosswinds exceeded limits and reduced tail rotor authority near the surface. Ceilings and visibility were below minima, and airspace deconfliction could not be guaranteed in that terrain. Precision approach radar support was not available, so holding in icing would have added unacceptable risk. Second question. Emily M. Carter can offer timing and information without taking command because she serves as a civilian cold weather guide in an overwatch role. The lieutenant retains authority for decisions, and the Royal Marines sergeant controls the line. M keeps radio brevity short and clear, adding cues only when a lull allows it. That respects the chain of command and keeps the net usable. Third question. Use magazine, not clip, for small arms. A practical habit is a tactical reload during a lull, retaining the partially spent magazine and confirming chamber status before movement. Muzzle awareness stays constant and fingers remain off triggers until the decision to fire. Accuracy and restraint matter more than gear details. Fourth question. The troop avoided volume fire because controlled bursts mask movement, conserve ammunition, and reduce signature in blowing snow. 3 to 5 rounds are enough to cover a short crossing in bounding overwatch. Casualty drag happens under cover along rock contour, not across open snow. The general-purpose machine gun threat is answered with timing and angles rather than noise. These lower thirds are meant to support, not correct. Terms like ceilings, visibility, minima, deconfliction, casualty drag, and weathered out are planning factors, not drama. The realism you see comes from simple habits repeated under pressure. Discipline and teamwork are the real force multipliers when air support is unavailable,